Okay, I'd like to call the regular city commission meeting of Tuesday, December 6th, 2022 to order and ask all of you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call. Start with Mayor Pro Tem Jenks.
Present.
Commissioner Elder.
Present.
Commissioner Roselle.
Present.
Commissioner Olsman.
Present.
Mayor Paul present. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Elected officials. I don't see any elected officials in the room, so we'll move on to public participation. Now is an opportunity for the public to address the commission on an item that is not on the agenda. If you have a comment, please come forward to the microphone.
I don't know if I'm on the agenda or not.
You are,
Okay.
actually. Your very first item of business, so. Okay, with seeing none, we'll close public participation and move on to the regular items of business.
I'm Nat Pernick, a Huntington Woods resident since '92, and I'm here to give the city a check for $1,000 as the winner of the 2022 voter challenge. It's the third election that I've done it between the 8 next door communities. They're all in our next door group, so it's Pleasant Ridge, Royal Oak, Southfield, Berkeley, Ferndale, a couple more. So this election, Huntington Woods had a turnout. This is based on Oakland County election records of 79.09%, which is first place, and followed by, which is usually the case, Pleasant Ridge, which was 76%. So we donate, the first prize is $1,000, and we ask each city to to designate a charity or charitable cause. And for Huntington Woods, I think I was told it was a membership organization, and I don't remember the exact name, but you do. So I will give the check to some.
Got it? Okay.
So congratulations, and I'm going to be continuing this for 2024. I have a goal of increasing voter turnout in all communities to at least 90%. It's an ambitious goal. With early elections and easy absentee ballots, I think it's at least theoretically possible. And I'm asking if people in each city want to set up, there already isn't one, a voter participation committee to generate ideas for getting people to turn out. Just doesn't have to be elaborate. It could be just more announcements in social media. It could be the banners the city puts up, to announce different things. There could be one about turning out to vote, maybe starting a month before the election, since that's kind of when things start off. So if anybody is interested, you can do it on your own, or I'd be happy to help spur it along, so just let me know.
All right, great idea. Thank you very much for sponsoring this. And I know the mayor of Pleasant Ridge and I had a little discussion about it on election day, and he was quite sure he was going to beat us. So.
That's right. Well, the prior mayor used to complain that the Oakland County statistics were not quite right and they should be adjusted. And I said, well, you might be right, but that's what we're using.
That was our numbers guru.
That's right. Well, yes, that's what I told him. You're the guru, but that's the standard we're using.
But you realize you'll be continually donating to Huntington Woods. We are annually, every time there's an election, we're usually top statewide.
Well, that's been so far, but,
Now, there are communities of 100 that sometimes beat us.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks again.
Well,
Thank
thank
you.
you. I just want to clarify, thank you so much for
Sure.
contributing to democracy and helping advance voter turnout. I believe the organization that we are going to join is the Government Alliance on Race and Equity
That's right.
Care. So very much aligned with what the Anti-Racism Committee is working on, and I think that also aligns with, what you're working on.
Right.
And so we really appreciate your contribution. And I think you're right. We take things for granted here in Huntington Woods, and it's a constant reminder to help
Right.
voters turn out for
Right.
each election. So thank you.
Nat,
Thank you.
could you introduce yourself to the public?
We did when we first came up.
Okay.
Okay. I'm a pathologist, and I'm a retired lawyer, and I'm a business owner. And my father, of blessed memory, was an Oakland County Commissioner for most of his adult life, and he got me involved in the importance of public service, and which I think you guys all know. And Gilda Jacobs, who used to be on this commission, was one of his proteges. She started, he mentored her first she was here, and then she was a county commissioner at some point. So for me, it goes back, I've been involved in public life since I was old enough to hand out leaflets and stuff them in the doors, so.
There's a conference room at the county courthouse named
Right.
in his honor. Yeah.
Right, and him and Dennis Aaron, who was
Yes.
another commissioner about his time from Oak Park. So,
Yes.
thanks
We,
again.
So you handed out flyers for Larry Pernick?
Yeah, a long time.
Mr. Mayor, I will say that we have ranked second statewide many times, but impossible to beat Point au Barc Township in the National Forest. They only have 5 residents. And so all 5 vote, and they get 100%, and we can never beat that. So we're always second to the 5-resident township in our state. And all 5 are required to serve on the township board, so isn't that something?
All right, our next item of business is a presentation of our 2021-22 financial statements presented by the city auditors. So I am going to move out of the way here for your presentation.
So you actually all have a printed copy of the slides that I have on the screen as well. And you had a PDF copy of the financial statements, the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, or ACFR, was sent to you. Sorry. A couple of general comments before I get going, and I promise I'll be brief. Our thanks to Ethan, Chris, and the rest of the city staff for their courtesy, cooperation, and assistance. We know we're a disruption when we're here doing field work, so we appreciate all the help that we received throughout the field work and even after. What I plan to do is highlight what I think are the key areas, but if you've got questions, stop me at any time, we can go through those. Just a brief overview or outline of what I'm going to talk about. The independent auditor's report, I've got a couple of paragraphs from that report that I've included in the slides. Government-wide financial statements, I'm just going to touch on. I don't have any graphs or slides on that, just a couple of metrics I wanted to share. The governmental funds financial statements, we're going to focus on the general fund as the operating fund for the city. Proprietary fund financial statements, we're going to look at the water and sewer fund, and then a look forward to the upcoming accounting pronouncements that will become effective over the next few years. So with that, the independent auditor's report is presented on pages 17 through 19 of the ACFR. Again, you don't have it in front of you, but it is there. The purpose of the objective of an audit is to express opinions on the financial statements as to whether or not they're fairly presented. Purpose of an audit is not to detect fraud or give you an opinion on your internal controls. And that is because fraud detection, deterrence, and prevention, as well as sound internal controls, are management responsibilities. If we find fraud, we certainly would share that with you. We have a responsibility to do so. If we've got recommendations on how to improve your internal controls, we would also share that with you in the form of a written report on internal control. But that's a byproduct of the audit itself. The purpose of the audit is to express opinions on the financial statements. Now, there were new auditing standards that were effective this year that rearranged the independent auditor's report. The opinions used to be buried on the second or third page. Now they're the first 2 paragraphs of that independent auditor's report. The first paragraph simply states that we performed the audit. The second one includes our opinions, and it, as you can see, reads, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects. That is the important phrase. That is why I highlighted it. That is what we refer to as an unmodified opinion or opinions. So that's the highest level of assurance that we can provide for a set of financial statements. To put that into some perspective for you, there are 3 types of opinions that we could express. You have the unmodified or the clean opinion. That's what you want to see. But we could express a qualified opinion that might read something like, except for capital assets, the financial statements are fairly presented. We could express an adverse opinion where the financial statements do not fairly present, are not fairly presented. The only other alternative that we have would be to disclaim an opinion altogether. We couldn't audit your records. So of the options, you've got what you're looking for in that unmodified opinion or opinions. And again, that's the highest level of assurance that we can provide for a set of financial statements. In the fourth paragraph on page 1 of that independent auditor's report, we highlight that management is responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements. That report is yours, it is not ours. So we express an opinion on it, but the financial statements are management's responsibility. Our responsibility is to, again, express opinions, but our objective is to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements are free from material misstatement. So this is a new or expanded paragraph under the new auditing standard that we had to implement. It is reasonable assurance, not absolute assurance. It is free from material misstatement, not all misstatement. So when we come in, we're here for a week or so. We select a sample of transactions. We don't look at everything. We don't look at every single transaction throughout the year. You wouldn't want to pay us to do that anyway. So it is reasonable assurance and free from material misstatement. The government-wide financial statements are presented on pages 33 and 34, and that would consist of the statement of net position and the statement of activities. Again, I don't have those. I didn't duplicate the financial statements and put them in the slide presentation. But a couple of metrics. The government-wide financial statements are prepared on the full accrual basis of accounting. And what that means is they have a long-term perspective. So you'll see things on the statement of net position, such as your capital assets, your long-term debt, your net pension liability, your net OPEB liability. Those are all long-term items. The only time you see government-wide financial statements is in that annual comprehensive financial report. It's not the reporting that you get throughout the year. It's not how you budget. So I don't spend a lot of time on it. But a couple of metrics, the governmental activities. So your financial statements are broken down into governmental activities and business type activities. The governmental activities, you have strong liquidity. You can cover your current obligations more than 3.5 times over as of June 30th of 2022. The unrestricted net position is negative. It is negative because of the amount of long-term debt, net pension liability, and the net other post-employment benefits liability that you have. So those legacy costs or liabilities do bring that unrestricted net position to a negative. But your pension is 73% funded. Your OPEB plan is 35% funded. And then you have long-term debt of about $27 million for governmental activities, and that would include the Kuhn drain bonds, road bonds, et cetera. For the fiscal year, you did add $2.9 million to your total net position. So for the current year, it was a positive result for the governmental activities. For the business type activities, you added $132,000 to your total net position. For the business type activities, it's the same information that you report for the water and sewer enterprise fund. So the water and sewer fund actually provides more detail, and I'll touch on that in a few minutes and in a few slides. So with that, we'll jump into the governmental funds financial statements, which are presented on pages 36 and 38. Governmental funds are presented on the modified accrual basis of accounting, so a different perspective than the full accrual basis. They have a current financial resources focus. So when you look at the balance sheet, there are no long-term items, such as capital assets, long-term debt, net pension liability, net OPEB liability. All of those types of items would just be expended as you write the checks. As you pay the bills, it's just an expenditure. It's not a liability. It's not a capital asset. This should be a more familiar presentation for you because this is the level at which your budgets are prepared, and the interim reporting that you get throughout the year is done at the fund level. So the balance sheet, the governmental funds balance sheet, is a snapshot as of June 30th of your assets, your liabilities, and the difference between the two would be your fund balance or your equity. For the general fund, your total fund balance as of June 30th was about $3.9 million. That $3.9 million is broken down into 5 possible classifications, as you can see in the center of the slide there: non-spendable, restricted, committed, assigned, and unassigned. The city's general fund only has amounts in 4 of those classifications: non-spendable, committed, restricted, and unassigned. So you don't have any assigned fund balance. However, if you did, I would compare your assigned plus your unassigned fund balance, and I would refer to that as unrestricted. And I would compare that unrestricted fund balance to your expenditures for the year. So your unassigned and unrestricted fund balance of just over $2 million compared to your expenditures, it's broken up on the slide, I apologize for that, but $5.4 million in expenditures and $2.9 million in other financing uses, and that's transfers out to other funds. So when you divide that out, that fund balance represents approximately 25% of your annual expenditures and other financing uses. So 25% equals 3.4 months of operations. The Government Finance Officers Association recommends to maintain a minimum fund balance in your general fund that is equal to at least 2 months of normal operations. So 2 out of 12 months is about 17%. You're sitting at 25%. 25% is not excessive. The 17% is definitely a minimum, not a maximum. But your general fund is healthy. It's sitting in good financial condition. To highlight the operating statement, the governmental funds, statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balances, again, focusing on the general fund, total revenues of $8.3 million. That was a decrease from the 2021 revenues of about 4%. So $362,000 lower than it was in 2021. Expenditures were about $408,000 higher than 2021, so about an 8% increase in expenditures at $5.4 million. You did have transfers out to other funds of $2.9 million. So you did use a little bit of your fund balance for this fiscal year. About $46,000 of general fund balance was used. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. This is the last 5 years. As you can see here from the graph, your revenues have exceeded your expenditures in 4 of the past 5 years. So you've added to your fund balance from 2018 through 2021, and then you just used a slight amount of fund balance for 2022. So that yellow bar represents your total fund balance, not just the unrestricted portion, but your total fund balance. But you can see from the graph that you're in sound financial condition. As far as the composition of your revenues for the general fund, 81% is property taxes. It was 76% in 2021. That is followed by intergovernmental revenue at 9%. That would include your state shared revenue, your sales tax. Last year, your intergovernmental revenue was 13%. So you had some grant money last year that you didn't get again in 2022. On the expenditure side, again, sticking with the general fund theme, public safety at 35%. It was 33% in the previous year. Transfers out at 35%. It was 38% in the previous year. So a little bit of a shift, but really not much. Pretty consistent with the 2021 composition of expenditures. This is the last 5 years of that percentage that unassigned or unrestricted fund balance compared to expenditures. As you can see, you've ranged from a low of 20% to a high of 28% in the past 5 years. And again, you're back down to that 25% at June 30 of 2022. But well above the 17% minimum that the GFOA recommends. This line graph is the same information, just in terms of dollars instead of percentages. That orange line is the 17% of your expenditures over the 5-year period, and then the blue line is the actual expenditures over the 5-year period. The proprietary funds presented on pages 40 through 42. Again, full accrual basis of accounting, the same information that you would see in the business type activities for the government-wide statements, but in more detail. So here, the snapshot, still at June 30, 2022, of your assets, deferred outflows of resources, liabilities, deferred inflows of resources, and the net of those 4 items is your net position or your equity. So total net position for the water and sewer fund was $7.6 million as of June 30th. For enterprise funds, there are only 3 classifications, not 5. You've got the amount that's invested in capital assets, because again, they're full accrual, so you've got capital assets on your statement of net position, the amount of net position that's restricted, and then the balance is unrestricted. So once again, I take the unrestricted amount, that amount that you have available for future use of $1.1 million, and I compare that to your expenses. Here I factor out depreciation expense of $214,000 because it's a non-cash expense. When we're talking about operations, I do factor out the depreciation expense. So when you go through that calculation, your operations are sitting at about I'm ahead of myself there. You're at about 5.9 months of operations. When you're looking at enterprise funds or full accrual statements, you can't look at them the same way that you do the general fund because they are full accrual. So you've got to consider the amount that you need for operations, which here I said 2 to 3 months is the recommendation, plus any debt service requirements for the next fiscal year, plus any capital needs. So we don't really have a benchmark like we have for the general fund to say 2 months worth of operations, because that capital needs is the most subjective piece of that recommended net position or equity. because everyone's system is different. Your water and sewer systems may be brand new, they may be 50 years old. So the maintenance on those is going to vary. So the more maintenance and replacement that you need, the higher net position that you want. Five-year trend for the water and sewer fund, as you can see, revenues again exceeding expenses in this case, each of the past 5 years. And so that, while that total net position looks extremely healthy, when you factor out the capital, the investment in capital assets, because you can't spend your water and sewer systems, what you have available for expenditure is the unrestricted portion, that almost $1.2 million in 2022. So just the blue portion of that bar is available for future operations. The 5-year line graph on what you have available compared to your expenses, factoring out depreciation, it has fluctuated a bit over the past 5 years. And so again, just a visual perspective of what you have available for future use in your water and sewer fund. Upcoming accounting pronouncements, page 77, note 15, which again, you don't have it in front of you, but I'll just hit the highlights here. GASB Statement 96 is effective for the fiscal year that you're in now, so June 30 of 2023. It's subscription-based information technology arrangements, or SBITAs, if you will, which is the leasing of software. So in this fiscal year, you had to implement GASB 80, or the year that we audited, excuse me, last fiscal year, you had to implement GASB 87 on leases. GASB 96 is very similar. The difference is that GASB 96 is related to software. GASB 87 was tangible assets. So what this does is you would have to recognize the right to use the software as an asset on the full accrual statements, statement of net position, and then recognize the lease payable liability. Currently, you're just paying them as you go, so that is a change in accounting for those subscription-based information technology arrangements. GASB 100 on accounting changes and error corrections is effective for fiscal year ending June 30 of 2024. More so in note disclosures and how they're presented, but the fact that an error has to be corrected didn't really change a whole lot. So there's a little bit added disclosure there for GASB 100, and then GASB 101 compensated absences is effective for June 30 of 2025. Kind of a redefinition of compensated absences and what that means, and again, some updated disclosures. The GASB is the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. They're the entity or the body that is responsible for writing all the accounting rules, and there isn't a note disclosure that they don't like. So we keep going. I sometimes refer to this as the Auditor Employment Act section of my presentation. This will keep us all busy for the next few years. So I keep that under 5 minutes. Any questions that I can answer for you? I did leave with you as well the two letters that will go along with the ACFR. One is the board, we call it the board communication letter, the governance letter, required by auditing standards to be issued, largely boilerplate language. So you see this every year, but it doesn't change much from year to year. And then a letter of comments and recommendations. We had a couple of comments. Wasn't going to go through those in detail, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions? All right. Thank you very much for your detailed work, and
My pleasure.
I do need a motion to accept
So moved.
the audit. Second. Any public comment? Comments or questions from the commission? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Also, thanks to Ethan for all his hard work in preparing many of these statements. He was sort of thrown into it this year with the personnel changes we've had, and we appreciate all the hard work. Okay, moving on to item number 3. This is a public hearing regarding the 2023 CDBG grant allocation. I forget, Ethan, were you going to
So first, it's a motion for a public hearing for the allocations, so that's just simply an open and close. Correct me if I'm wrong, Carol.
Would the, okay, do we have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Support.
Don't need that. All right. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so public hearing is open. Do we have, do you want to present what we are proposing?
Does someone have the time? 7:55.
So this is just largely routine here. This is through a community development block grant. We do this every year. There's just a required commission approval to approve the amounts that are designated. The $8,488 is what's allocated to us. It does not change, but we need to allocate it to certain areas. Management recommends removal of architectural barriers. This is familiar. We did this last year as well, but going in for ADA compliant structures, removal of structures that can enhance ADA compliance within the rec center, and transportation services for our seniors. So I just need a motion for, to accept that.
Okay,
Allocation.
that's what we're proposing. So is there any public comment to that? All right, seeing none, I'm going to close public participation and then move on to item number 4, which is a matter of authorizing the 2023 CBDG allocation.
And Mr. Mayor, I move to approve program year 2023 Community Development Block Grant application in the amount of $8,488 as follows, and authorize the mayor to sign the application and submit the documents to Oakland County. Transportation, driver wages, $3,500. Remove architectural barriers, $4,988.
Support.
Any public comment? Comments or questions from the commission?
I have a question, Mr. Mayor. I know this is a separate agenda item 6. Are the two related? Are they basically funding the same type of project?
So, item number 6, we're applying for a grant for some improvements within the rec center. CDBG is separate from.
Correct.
Yeah.
But it's the project, I know there are different funding streams, but are they the same?
We're not allowed to,
Cap that?
we're not allowed to combine funding
Yeah.
streams. These are two separate projects.
Okay. So can you clarify for me then the difference between the removal of architectural barriers for 4988 versus, like, what is actually being done to the rec center in this one versus number 6?
Okay, so for the CDBG one, that's just removing a guardrail. And then on, it says installing a grab bar and seating in the men's locker room showers. And then the transportation services is for the busing. And then when we do agenda item number 6, that's just general larger scale improvements to the locker rooms.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 5 is a matter of consideration of approving the city manager to execute the interlocal agreement with Oakland County as the designated assessor for the period of January 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2027. We have a motion? So moved.
Support.
Any public comment? Comments or questions from the commission? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 6 is a matter of consideration to approve the resolution in support of the Spark Grant application for renovations to the Gillum Recreation Center locker room and pool. So moved.
Support.
Any public comment? Comments or questions from the commission?
2 comments. One, if we don't get this on the first round, we're allowed to resubmit. And 2, I would request request that the city request request support from SEMCOG. They're willing to give it on this and other grants as well. A letter of support.
Tracy, do you want to add any more detail to what we're applying here to do,
If you'd like me to, that's fine. Director Stefan.
if you don't mind?
Yeah, we're very excited about this possible opportunity. And our locker rooms, as you know, at the recreation center are about 25 years old. They are accessible, but they need to be more accessible. And this grant, allows for that, and to make it more inclusionary, make it universal, that sort of thing. And then what Ethan was also talking about in regards to the CDBG grant is that our turnstile that we have at the pool as our exit is not handicap accessible at all. That is going to be for removal of that piece and make it something that we can have like an emergency exit and entrance for public safety to get there, and also make it universal and accessible for everybody to be able to come to our pool. So we're looking to do the family locker rooms, men's locker rooms, and the women's locker rooms, and reconfigure them, have less lockers, do all sorts of things to make it easier for everybody to come to the pool. So we're pretty excited about it. So, any questions? It's my first big grant. I've been part of it, so it's been pretty exciting to learn. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 7 is a matter of consideration to approve the quote from Interstate Security, Inc. for the access control and buzz-in system for the Gillum Recreation Center in the amount of $7,785.
So move.
Seconded.
Any public comment? Any comments or questions from the commission?
I believe it's a wise purchase.
I agree. We've heard from residents that have expressed concern about safety access through that door, and so I think we're taking immediate steps to control that security access point. And so I want to thank the rec department for bringing this forward.
I'd like to thank the residents for bringing this forward. I used Latchkey before and wasn't aware of this, and I was kind of shocked that I wasn't aware of it. And so thank you to the residents who wrote us. And thank you, Tracy, for taking immediate action and making this recommendation.
Can I suggest that the city also talk to Charlie Cavell? We may be able to get this entirely funded with county funds.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 8 is a matter of consideration of the approval of a right-of-way parking space at 13133 Victoria. And I believe we have the homeowner here.
We do. Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, my name is Akiva Goldman. I live on the corner of Victoria and Berkeley at 13133 Victoria. And I'm here asking for permission to finalize the placement of pavers in the right-of-way, the area between the sidewalk and the street. Just by way of introduction, let me say that I purchased that home in 2019, right before the pandemic. This property was sorely neglected and was really suffering a lot of deferred maintenance when I bought it. We have taken on to make the project in a way that a lot of residents of Huntington Woods have, and I provided some pictures, but I'd like to just demonstrate for you Okay, this is what the property looks like right now. like a lot of residents of Huntington Woods, we've taken a lot of time and effort to make our home as beautiful as we could. And if comments are any indication, those improvements have been very well received. Now, this past summer, the city came to the west side of our property, directly adjacent to our driveway, and removed a huge old tree. The city's full of them. It's just this huge 30-foot tree, large, 5-foot wide, maybe a lot bigger trunk. And in so doing, took it away, and that was fine. We were delighted. However, when they came, after putting the orange sawhorse, when they came to finalize these corrections or these improvements, I came out there and I saw what they were doing, and I asked them what's going on. And at ground level, they told me, oh, this is what we're doing. We're putting grass seed and a hay-like substance that they put right over there on the ground. And I said, well, hang on a minute. You're leaving me with this huge hump? How could you leave me with that? I'm not a person who would find that acceptable. What can be done? This has to be dug out, excavated, the roots pulled out, the stump ground down. What's going to happen? And I was told, that's on you. This is what we do. That's on you. So I accepted that. I understand that there are some things that are the responsibility of the homeowner. So what I decided to do after thinking about it, I suppose I had some options, and I decided, okay, I will undertake to grind that thing down and pull that stuff out. And that's what I did. Now, the question then becomes, what do you do with what's left? Because after you remove it, and it's uneven with the other payments, the trip has it. I suppose I could have put grass, or I could have put mulch, I could have landscaped it like other people have done. I've decided that what I'd like to do is put pavers there. They're smooth, they're low maintenance, they are in keeping with the improvements and the appearance of my home, and they provide various functions. And I thought that was a great idea, and I undertook to begin that project. I was told, though, that the pavers are actually a parking space. And I suppose I have to acknowledge that somebody could very well park the car right over there. I suppose that could be a parking space. And therefore, the only vehicle I had to come before and ask for permission to do that is to come here and ask you to allow me to do this. And I want to show you, and I know I have provided a written summary, but I want to show you exactly what I have in mind. This is what I have in mind. These are pavered tiles that are right in the area in question. Now, I live on a corner. I have a very, very small driveway. My driveway from my garage to the sidewalk is about 16 feet. What my car looks like when it's parked there. You can see the tail of my car hanging right over the sidewalk. It's really, really small, and it's on an incline. So it's a situation. I have cars, I can park them in the garage. If somebody comes to visit me, that's what they got. They have the option of either parking in the street, for which no overnight parking is permitted, or they have the back of their car hanging over the sidewalk, which causes all sorts of hazards for people who are walking dogs at night, people who are perhaps jogging, all sorts of things. That's obvious to everybody. So my feeling was that, this was a good thing to do. It created all sorts of options for us as homeowners. My kids could play there. I would have the occasional space. I acknowledge that it could be used for parking, and I thought that was the right thing to do. And it's not a matter without precedent. Here is the home of one of my neighbors on the same block. This is what he did. He put pavers over there. Apparently, the city either allowed him to do it or didn't really care to enforce any particular rules. I presume he must have gone through the appropriate channels to do it.
Does your neighbor have a permit for a right-of-way parking spot?
I don't know. Here's another neighbor just down the block from me. Now, what this person did was he didn't actually put the kind of pavers that I put. He put those sort of exo cement pavers and plopped his car right on top of it. Again, I don't know if he got a permit or not. Maybe he did. I have to presume everybody's doing the right thing. So I presume he came before you and asked and got permission. He's also a corner lot, tiny driveway, needed a place to park another car. That's what he did. Now, this person who's on the corner of Edward and Scotia, he didn't even bother with the pavers. He just paved it like a regular parking space. He was permitted to do this, I presume, and that's what he did. Now, other neighbors have done other things with that same right-of-way. This person chose to landscape it. This is my neighbor from a couple blocks over on Ludlow. So here's my point. it's not a matter without precedent. People in Huntington Woods, you know, we have a small city and small houses and small lots, and we're trying to do. I've got a corner lot, but I have very little utilization in terms of my driveway. It's steep. It can't accommodate another car. My brother comes to visit me for the Sabbath. We got a whole thing. Where should he park? Should he park on the street? Can't do it. Should he park in the driveway? Leaves half the car out. It's a problem. And it's a problem that I thought that now that the city already removed the tree and created an opportunity, and I had to do something with it anyway, I felt that this was a reasonable approach and frankly, a very aesthetically pleasing approach and in keeping with my home. It is also the fact that it is this proposed right-of-way for these pavers is on a street for which there is no overnight parking. It's a unique circumstance because my driveway is extremely small, as I already indicated. There is no negative impact on surrounding areas. In fact, as I've already demonstrated to you, many of my neighbors have done the same thing. The truth is, it wasn't even my radar to look. When I was notified, hey, you shouldn't do this, I walked around the block, and that's where I got these pictures. So what do you mean? Everybody has undertaken the same remedy. It is also a corner lot where the driveway length is less than 20 feet. It will not impact in any negative way the essential character of the area. These are amongst the list of factors that the commission should evaluate according to the rules. So here's my point. The city, in removing the tree, did me two things. Did me a tremendous favor in removing a tree that could fall on my house or could cause a hazard, but also did me something else. It left me with a mess. I came over there at my own expense. I cleaned up the mess. I made it beautiful. And now, because it's something for which I should have asked permission for parking space, I'm now coming to you and saying, you know what, I didn't do this right. I didn't realize that to complete that project, I had to come and get a permit to do that, but I want to do that now. It's an appropriate thing. It's nice looking. It's clean. It is not higher than the grass. It does not interfere with the right-of-way. You know what interferes with the right-of-way? A 50-foot tree interferes with the right-of-way. You know what interferes with the right-of-way? People who landscape it. And they're apparently permitted to do that. Or in the alternative, there's no enforcement of that. So therefore, what I'm asking you to do is one of two things. Well, actually one thing. I'm asking you to give me the permission to finalize the installation of these pavers. I think it's clean. It works in terms of the aesthetics of the neighborhood and the house, and it serves a valuable function for me. And what could be more reasonable than that? That's all I'm asking. Thank you.
Mr. Goldman, you mind if I ask you a couple questions?
I would appreciate it.
So you understand that the right-of-way is city property?
I do.
City of Huntington Woods?
Yep.
So you said that the city did you a favor by taking the tree down. The tree belonged to the city, correct?
I don't know who it belonged to, but it still did me a favor.
Well, was it on the city right-of-way?
It was on the right-of-way.
Okay, so then it would be reasonable to think that it's our tree, the city's tree?
Well, the sprinkler system and the irrigation of the whole city is also on those right-of-ways.
Okay, but we're trying, let's stay on message here with this
Certainly.
issue. So the right-of-way is city property, and what you've done is, as you say, you've improved it by putting in these pavers without a permit.
Correct.
Okay, and and you've also indicated that the purpose of this is not a parking space. I mean, from your submission, you say you don't want it for that. You say you want it so your children can play basketball there?
Well, in my submission, I indicated that right now, I only have two cars. They're both in the driveway. I don't have licensed drivers in my home, but I have to acknowledge this could be used as parking space.
Okay.
And the statutes and the rules don't say, if you want to use this recreationally, these are the rules, come and ask us. It only gives me the ability to ask for a parking space in that framework. So that's why I supplement my written comments with this order.
That's right. I mean, the ordinance that, as written, directs itself to the purpose for which people over the years have sought to do this. And, it was amended in 2015 to make it more clear and to make it more specific. You're a lawyer, so you looked at the ordinances, I take it.
I took an opportunity.
Okay,
to
so yeah,
look at the
I'm
ordinance.
sure you did. But the the point is that the city, it's up to us as to whether or not one of these right-of-way permits can be granted. And here, you've said, well, I don't want it for parking. I want it for aesthetics, and I want it for my children to be able to play basketball on it. But that's not what the ordinance provides for.
Well, that's why I'm using this opportunity to supplement my submission and tell you that I have this need also. A lot of people are going to have this need. Frankly, I think the city should encourage it. I understand the right-of-way issues, but I think that's...
Do you have any idea what the city would be inviting if we said people can do whatever they want to with the right-of-way, pave it, do whatever, I mean, that's city property.
I get it, but look what the city, what does the right-of-way mean? The right-of-way means if we got to get on your property, we need a clear ability to do so. That's what the right-of-way is. So has the city encouraged clear right-of-ways by having 50-foot dead trees there? Obviously not. That's why they removed them. I mean, if you go around our city, you know, so many people have done different things with those rights of way. Maybe each and every single one of those have come to you folks and asked permission to do so. This was my shortcoming. I just didn't evaluate that I needed to do that because I'm not the one who caused the problem. I'm just fixing it. But I was wrong about that. I realized that I was told that I have to come in, so I immediately did so. But yes, do I realize the problem? If everybody puts whatever they want on the right-of-way, yes, huge problem. But that's not what I'm doing. This is a very level surface. It allows total access anytime somebody wants. Right now, I don't even have need for it as at this moment for an immediate parking need of my own, but I do have it for social reasons. If people should come over, I'm faced with the liability of having somebody park their car halfway on the sidewalk and halfway on my driveway, and guess what? Somebody gets hurt. Guess who gets sued for that? Me. And maybe the city will get sued too because it's on their property. I don't know, but I need to worry about that. I want to have a better opportunity.
I don't understand, what's the liability that somebody would walk into the side of a car?
Yes.
That would,
Somebody's driving a bicycle on the sidewalk, doesn't expect my car to be there. We can say it's open and obvious and they should have known, but you know what?
that's
I'm
not
not
the-
interested in that.
Hold on, we're way off track here. Let me just ask you this. You understand that there's the ordinance in Huntington Woods with respect to parking says you absolutely cannot park your vehicle in a manner that obstructs the sidewalk. You
That's
understand?
great.
Okay, so I think whoever the person is that parks the car and the homeowner have an obligation to make sure that the sidewalk's not obstructed. Well, let's just come down to this issue of parking. You say you personally don't have an issue where you have too many cars and you just can't park the cars in the room that you have, correct? You're talking about if you have a social guest or whatever
If
coming
you
up.
ask me if I need it for myself, the answer at this moment is no. My children are not of driving age at this moment. The ones that I do are no longer at home. I don't have the problem.
But you know that the city will, if asked, if a homeowner comes to the city and says, I have too many cars, or I have a problem where I have to have another vehicle, or I have to be able to park a vehicle on the street, the city will now issue permits that allow a
For the
homeowner to
corner
park on the street.
Very temporary permits though, for a very limited amount of time, right?
No, I believe they're purchased on an annual basis, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, I was not aware of that,
So.
which is good. My son comes home from college, he needs this
Well,
thing, at least it's a possibility.
You've got a remedy, so, and that previously in our city was not a favored practice, but when Chief Pazukowski came, he felt that it was reasonable, so we changed the ordinance to allow that, so that people, if they want to park on the street, purchase a permit, that they can do it, and if the police see the vehicle, they can recognize the emblem or whatever it is, and they know it's lawfully there, and that the homeowner's paid a permit. But I'm just gonna tell you, I mean, I hear everything you're saying, but you're just not really giving us any reason as to why we should even consider it. I mean, it's city property, you did it without a permit, you put in what you think is aesthetic and acceptable, and it's not, even for right-of-way parking spots. If a person comes to us and says they want to put in a right-of-way parking spot, I'm sure you looked at the ordinance, it has to be permeable brick. It can't even be something that you can even notice like that. It's supposed to allow the grass to grow through the brick, so it's not that noticeable, and also with respect to drainage, and all those other issues. It helps with all that. I mean, you're just not giving us anything to work with here.
Well, here's the thing, those are details. Now you're talking about the material and what the material is, and whether this material complies with that. I understand that, and, that becomes an issue of once the permit is approved, then the way the statute reads is, once we do this, then we look to this. I would argue that I'm not at that stage yet, because I haven't gotten the approval.
Did you get a work permit?
I got
A stop work order on that property?
I don't know. Here's what I got. I got at first, a letter taped to my service door, which my housekeeper found on the floor and brought in. This was all done at
So you
at
had-
the
but you
outset.
got the letters.
Very unofficial. And it said you created a parking space, and I said, well, I wasn't aware that I had done that. And it said, please don't do this, and you gotta stop. So that's what we did.
The work stopped at that time, or it
The-
continued?
No, here's what happened. It was a very odd situation. I think it was.
The whole thing is very odd.
Well, nonetheless, what happened was the work was in progress. I got a note, I got this letter, it was presented to me when I got it. There was no work supposed to be done on this property. I reached out to the guy who was doing it. I left a message. He ultimately, when he got the message, he stopped work. There was additional work done in between until such time as that message was received. Where it is right now is it's not completed. It's partially done, and it's sitting out there pending this hearing. So that's where we're at right now with it. I mean, I think like this. I think that there is no mechanism other than to ask for a parking space in the statutes set up for me to come here. This is the only vehicle that I can utilize to do this, as far as I could tell.
But there's a reason for that.
That may be, I'm not saying that there isn't.
This was a very significant issue that the city was faced with.
When? Not when I was here, I didn't know nothing about it.
There's an ordinance on it, okay? And that is what prompted the ordinance in 2015.
What is
okay?
what prompted?
It's the city's right-of-way. It is the city's property. In addition to it being a right-of-way for a potential road, there's utilities underneath there that the city has to be able to access. In addition, aesthetically, the city doesn't want all their right-of-ways paved over, okay?
Okay.
It's not what the city wants the community to look like. The city made certain policy decisions, we adopted an ordinance. Now, understand, you can't look around and say, he has one, I should have one. There were a number of them that existed at the time, so under the law, they were lawfully non-conforming, and they could continue, okay? To my knowledge, I believe we've only granted, in this entire time, one parking waiver for somebody, and it was a very, very unique situation, okay?
Okay.
The other ones have parking permits that were non-conforming, okay? And as the roads are being paved, they are required to remove those right-of-way parking spaces. So the goal is to get rid of these, all
And
right?
the spaces do not go with the property. The spaces that were there as people leave,
They have to be
those
ripped out.
are removed. So the next person that comes in can't say, there was a space here, it was there for 20 years, it's aesthetically nice. Now, you raise some other issues. I have guests coming, they need to stay, they're going to stay overnight. You can call public safety and get permission. There has never been a complaint as relating to that. The other thing is you yourself can get permission on corner lots for a permit to park there because you may have a problem the way your property is configured. So you've indicated a few things. One, as you drove around the city and in the presentation that we received, there are loads of people that have spaces. Those were non-conforming spaces grandfathered in. They are not spaces with the property. As the attorney has indicated, we have not granted, with the exception of one critical need, any additional spaces. To the issues that you've presented about my son may come, let's say he wants to stay for 5 days, he can get permission to park on the street. There may be an issue if it's a snow day or something like that, and you would work it out with the city. But the reality is, for the necessity of short-term parking, we've not had any complaints because that isn't an issue. For the car that hangs over the driveway, you can get permission permanently from the city. You renew it annually, but it's parking on the street. I believe you have to be 10 or 20 feet from the curb. There's a certain limit there.
And I appreciate these comments, I do. And some of them shed light on things that I did not know, being a new resident here in Huntington Woods. I'll tell you one thing, though. You know, it's city property, everybody's saying it's right away, belongs to the city, belongs to the city. How do you come in and how does the city not take care and grind down these stumps and dig these out and
Who
look
said
like
that,
it's
who
their
said the
property?
city, Mr. Goldman, who said the city wasn't gonna grind it out?
Well, I don't know, but they haven't.
Well, every one of the trees that I've seen that's been taken out in a right of way, the city has ground them out.
Not mine.
Well, yet, but
And I
I
was
mean,
told at ground level, this is on you. This
what do
is
you
we-
mean by ground
I
level?
mean the people who are doing the job.
But
Did you bring
Did
the
you call
issue
the
to the
city?
city?
Those are the individuals that I spoke to at ground level.
that's not the
Doing
question.
the job.
Those are
Didn't call the city.
contractors, are not city employees.
Well, I knew
You
they're
know
doing
better
this
than
for
that.
the
You're
city.
you said you were an attorney. You know better than that. You know
They-
if you had a question with
I
the
don't wanna
city,
get
you should have
overly-
contacted the
I
city.
didn't have a question for the city. It was resolved. Those who had, apparently were the agents of the city.
No, they have no
made it clear to me-
authority.
Made it clear to me.
They're tree
that that is-
contractors, Mr. Goldman.
They have no authority
You
to
know.
bind the city on anything, and you know
It's not a
that.
question of
We're-
binding the
Okay,
city.
I think we're,
I do have a question for
Sure.
Mr. Goldman. I want some clarity on the time frame
Sure.
in which you told your story, but you received this letter from Mr. Hank Berry on October 24th,
Yep.
and it says that you're out of compliance. And to avoid legal action, please comply and remove the parking space within 14 days of the date of this letter. And then it says, please contact the zoning department with his complete information. There's nothing really after that. And then October 27th, there is a civil infraction citation. So that's 3 days later. Can you walk us through your response, or did you reach out to Hank at any point to get
Yes.
a conversation, or?
Here's what I did. I came in, I think I came into the city, I may have called first, but I came in and I said, I got this. This is accusing me of putting in a parking space.
Do you remember what day you got
Very
it?
shortly thereafter.
Okay, and so you stopped work right after you got this letter?
No, I put in a call to stop work. Work continued for one more day until my message was received.
By your contractor?
Yeah, what happened was, there was one day that was supposed to be rainy, so there was no work supposed to be on that day. Turned out it was a beautiful day, so they went back and they started putting more. And then it turned out that they stopped because they only went so far. I'm not sure if they stopped because somebody called them. I wasn't there. I'm at work all day. Wasn't there, but then I had sent them a thing. I said, you gotta stop, let me work this out. As far as Mr. Berry's concerned, I went there and I said, why am I being told about parking space? My intention here is just to level this off. I want it for my kids, maybe a parking space, I don't know. I understand and acknowledge that it could be the size of the parking space, it could be the size of a lot of things though. And I said, what's this all about? He said, look, if you want permission to do this, you didn't ask for permission, you gotta come to the commission. So that's what we did. I wrote up a thing and I said, yeah, that's the chronology.
I'm not sure if that was my interpretation of what was in the packet.
The packet, I don't know specifically what you're referring to in the packet. The packet is not designed.
The information that you submitted.
Yeah, I'm not saying, the packet is not designed to be the four corners of this entire arrangement. There are.
Okay, so the work
it's just a-
stopped before the citation?
I don't know. when
You received the
citation-
letter on the 24th, and then you
What-
said shortly after you came in to see Mr. Hank Berry, and then there was a one-day lag time between when you contacted your contractor, but the citation was issued 3 days later.
Yeah, I don't know why the citation was issued later. I don't know why I got the citation. I mean, I suppose I got the citation, as the citation said, because it said I'm interfering with the right-of-way. There was some remark on what the citation was for. And I thought, this is odd. I have a hearing, and now they're giving me a ticket for it. They want, I don't know what that's all about, but, I got the.
So you had a
citation
hearing
sometime
date
thereafter.
before you got the citation?
No,
You knew you were going to get a hearing before you got the citation?
did I know, I knew that I was going to get a hearing. I didn't have a date, though.
Okay, I have no further questions.
I got the ticket, though, while that was pending, which I thought was odd. That's number one. And number
What-
two,
The ticket, hold on a minute, you got a hearing date when what was pending?
He says before he.
I got a
says you
ticket. I got an
You're
actual
right,
ticket.
I know, for constructing this without a permit, but
Right.
I don't understand when what was pending. You mean your request to us?
My request to come here. And to be honest, I didn't even know about this hearing tonight. I got an email about this yesterday, saying, oh, by the way, you're on tomorrow's docket. I mean, so I knew it was coming. I just didn't know when. I knew there would be an effort made to put it on the December docket. That's really all I knew.
Mr. Mayor.
And in the interim, I got a ticket.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, can we just have Mr. Barry maybe explain the chronology just for the benefit of the commission as to what you observed and how we got to where we're at?
Thank you, Commissioner Rozelle. Basically, the chronology for the tickets and the notice is that I had been out and I had saw that the work was taking place. If you take a look at the dates on everything, and I've given you copies of when the dates were, and you can see that the Mr. Goldman's property was posted. It was noticed. It was posted all on the 27th. The reason that all that happened is that after we had already told them to stop, and he said he was going to send in something and do that, at that point in time, we did not have that yet. So on the following day, the gentleman was out continuing to work on the project. At that point in time, we issued the ticket because clearly there was no communication because he was there or he was just going to finish the project. As Mr. Goldman indicated, he went and there was a phone call that was given, I assume on the date that it was posted, because that's when he would have gotten the notice because all three went out at the same time. So he got the notice, he called, his contractor failed to check his voicemail that day or the morning prior to coming to redo the work, which, okay. And then when he was working on it, again, I told him this has been a stop project and I wrote the ticket. And that would be to do one of two things. One is with the ticket, is to assure compliance with that and to assure a vehicle for compliance. So if the hearing for this was going to be in December, which is the next city commission meeting, which at the time when we had a discussion, he knew it was going to be the next city commission meeting. This is the next city commission meeting. So we got that and it got put on the agenda and he went ahead and presented his case and I've submitted what my conditions were. You've all received my comments and everything on this. And that's where we're at. I mean, there was a time frame. He was issued the ticket because not only did he not comply, but he continued. And I would have no way of knowing that his message wouldn't be received for 2-3 days from the contractor. So we wrote that because work was still continuing, and instead, after we told them no, not to do it, it was still continuing. Whether Mr. Goldman had control of his contractor or not, I can't speak to that. But I can speak to the fact that work was continuing.
Well, we don't have the power to adjudicate the ticket anyway. That's for
No,
the
that's up to the
45B
court.
district court
Yep.
to do. But as far as, I think it's pretty clear that we just don't have anything to work with here. I mean, what you're really doing is saying, I didn't ask for permission, now I'm here to ask for forgiveness.
Well, it's exactly correct. And what option is there when someone doesn't ask for permission? I didn't know.
Well,
I didn't
the
know-
option to the body that has to decide it is to say, well, if you didn't seek a permit, I mean, look, Mr. Goldman, you're a lawyer. Of all the people that could come in and say that, well, I didn't know and everything, I mean, for somebody like you to start work on something like this without checking with the city and saying, well, am I able to do this? Because a contractor working for a tree removal service said it's up to you. That's pretty weak for a man of your stature. isn't it?
I would agree with you if that was an appropriate characterization, but I don't think it is. And I just want to finish with one thing. I get the sense that you folks have a strong feeling about this. And I will be perfectly candid and tell you that because I saw so many of these spaces, I didn't think the city was discouraging that. That's history I'm not familiar with, okay? And I appreciate your telling me that, hey, we're really trying to get out from doing that. I understand that.
And well, let me just tell you something. As somebody who's watched this movie for a long time, one of the problems was people would just put them in. They would just decide that they wanted one, and they would just put them in with total disregard of the fact that it's city property. And the city never gives up its property, ever gives up its property. So, it led to a situation where, as Ms. Rosati indicated, the policy has been to eliminate these spots, not enlarge the number. And there are really very few in the city, very few, especially compared to what there were 10 or 15 years ago. And what was not in place 10 or 15, well, beyond that time, was a real clear city policy. Now we have a real clear city policy. And you know what? Most people are fine with it, especially since the city now allows parking on the street if you need it. And as Commissioner Jenks pointed out, you say, well, if my brother comes over for Shabbos, blah, blah, blah. That's great. I think it's wonderful that he does. If he's going to spend the night, all you have to do is call the public safety and say, there's a car parked here. We're Shomer Shabbos. We're not going to move the car on Saturday, whatever. They're not going to, as long as they know about it, they're fine. Now, if it's somebody that's doing it every day, you got to go buy a permit. That's all. But I mean, we've provided a remedy. So overall, the policy with regard to right-of-way parking spaces is very much not in favor of them.
I understand.
And to see them go away, and as these roads are repaired and dug up, and these right-of-ways are going away, and it's in the ordinance, it's clear. And as Commissioner Jenks noted, when the property is sold now, it goes away, unless the person that buys the house comes in and says, I want to do this, but they have to make that effort. It's an affirmative effort on the part of the owner.
I get it. And
So
I
anyway.
think there's two shortcomings here. My shortcoming was not asking about it.
A lot of shortcomings.
Hang on. My shortcoming was not asking for it in advance.
Yeah,
You know what the city's
But you
shortcoming
could have
was?
saved yourself a lot of
You know
trouble.
what?
That-
Had
that
you
would have
asked
been
for it, you
refused.
probably wouldn't have gotten it.
You
We
wouldn't
don't
have gotten-
grant these permits.
It would have been great for the city to tell me, hey, we're going to grind that out.
You didn't
You
ask.
didn't ask.
You didn't ask, you asked a guy.
Even to this day, this was
didn't
done months
call the
ago.
city.
Even to this day, it was months ago. I didn't do this till October. This was done in maybe June. How come nobody said to me, hey,
Well-
don't worry, we're taking care of this?
You didn't ask.
So
You're the
that's-
person that had to make the complaint to the city, which said this contractor did not complete the job to my liking and to normal
Okay.
practice.
All right, I
And if
didn't know
you
what that
didn't
was.
do that, we can't be magicians.
Mr. Goldman, I do sympathize with your being new and not knowing, sure, that happens. And, the reason why I was asking about the timing and the process is I feel like it's out of our hands because unfortunately, for whatever, it is what it is, you didn't follow the process. And it's outside of the way, even the way that the ordinance is written, I feel that it's outside of my power to grant it after the fact, especially after the fact that it's already been put in. So I just feel like I feel like I'm in a corner. I have no choice but to not be able to grant the waiver.
I understand, and I don't want to take anybody's additional time, because I get the sense that the commission doesn't see it as I see it, and that's fine. You make your rulings as you see fit. All I tried to do is make this thing look better than the city left it with. That's it. That's the bottom line. That's all I tried to do.
But this is
get
also
it.
not a current view. This is a view that's been here for 7 years plus.
5 years longer than I've been here.
Right.
But that doesn't, Mr. Goldman, as I've told you, you know, you're a well-respected lawyer. Of all the people who can't say, well, I didn't know, you're the first person to say, well, I better, before I start spending my own money on this, maybe the city's gonna come grind out the stump, and if the city said we're gonna grind out the stump, it doesn't matter whether, look, there's a lot of work going on. You see these tree services in the city, there's a lot of work going on to try to get rid of trees that are diseased or dangerous or whatever. It's part of the city's ongoing effort, you know, frankly, to beautify the city. So some of that involves taking trees down. But, I mean, this is very much a self-created problem, and I'm sorry you got into it the way you did.
You know what, it is what it is. If somebody was at my house and looked around and saw all those driveways and right-of-ways that had pavers on them, nobody would think, oh, wait a minute, this is something the city discourages. It would look like it was something that was prevalent. It was a reasonable assumption, despite the fact that some people may think, as a lawyer, I should not have made that assumption. That was my assumption. So that's why I did it.
Do you want to withdraw the application, or do you want us to rule on it?
No, I don't want to withdraw the application. I did my job. You guys did your job. I believe me, I won't fault you for it. You all get, at the end of the day, we're all in our city. We got to live together. So do what you got to do.
Well, that's the purpose of this. So anyway, all right.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to move that we, with respect to item number 8, that the request for a right-of-way parking spot at 13133 Victoria Street be denied.
We have a second.
Second.
Any other public comment? Any other comments from the commission? All those,
One of the quirks in this city, which you will discover, is because we love where we live, we usually don't move very quickly. So if you see spaces, those may be from 30 or 40 years ago.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries to deny the application.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Our city manager, I forgot to mention, is surrounded by sick children and sick himself this evening, so.
We're glad he
He is
stayed home.
excused and his report is shorter than normal, unless Ethan or Hank want to fill us in on anything.
Mr. Mayor, at this point in time, on behalf of City Manager Wilson, he did leave some comments that he would like to bring forward for your knowledge and for your consideration. One is that he wanted everybody to know that the road construction is complete, minus some punch list items that need to be completed. The restoration has been completed this week and will be reevaluated in the spring to make sure all the plantings took. So they're done for the season with that. Also, the city administration will meet with the engineers later this week to begin planning for road projects and sewer repair work for the 2023 season. Another thing that he wanted to bring forward and let everybody know, and the public in general, is that the leaf collection has been completed. DPW is now chipping and street sweeping in preparation for the winter season. The last day for bagged yard waste pickup at curbside will be December 13th. After that, residents can take up to 10 bags of yard waste to the MRF for disposal, and that's a soccer site on Coolidge. Curbside yard waste collection will begin again in early April. Other than that, I think I would defer to Ethan. There was a couple other things that I thought that you had that you wanted to go over.
We also have, so in regards to boards and commission appointments, we've put together a list of all terms expiring at the end of the month and are getting confirmation of those who are interested. It looks like we need to fill the vacancies at the January 17th commission meeting. Just judging by the sheer amount of applications and vacancies we may have to do a special meeting for those interviews. That's to be determined. Deb Hemier, our library director, will also be present at the January meeting to give an update at the library. And then as well, just wanted to add one more thing. Our CVTRS standard yearly reporting for the state has been completed and sent in, and that's required to be posted on the website, so those documents will be present, performance dashboard, things like that. And And also, I just wanted to share, I was appointed treasurer on the Oakland County Treasurers Association, so we have representation on the board. It's an important networking and just especially for the county treasurer, like a good sounding board for treasury policy at around the county. So that's all we have.
And one other thing that the city manager did want to pass on to everybody is his wishes for a happy holiday season for all in the city of Huntington Woods and everywhere. He had a couple comments that said, one was "Go Lions," they're on a roll. And of course, he's a fanatic for the Lions. And he also had a comment that pains me to say, but "Go Blue." And other than that, I'll add.
Mr. Holzman was just telling me that before the meeting, I believe, yes.
Yeah, and I'll add a "Go Green" there for.
There you go.
Yeah.
So white.
Mr. Mayor, that's all that we have this evening.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the fill-in city managers?
But,
Yes. Will we, because you're treasurer of the treasury, will you find us more money?
To the extent that they have the funds available, possibly.
Thank you.
Mr.
Okay,
Mayor,
do we have a motion to adjourn?
Now, before we do though,
one
Mr.
more.
Mayor, there is just one thing. On a very sad note, we lost a really fine person and judge, Jamie Wittenberg, who was a district judge in the Royal Oak District Court and the 45A District Court about 2 weeks ago. And very, very sad situation for him and for the family. And he is the brother of our former state representative, now county treasurer, Robert Wittenberg. So, he was just a terrific person, terrific judge. Everybody liked him. There was never, as far as I could tell in his career, a bad word spoken about him as a judge. It's very, like I said, very sad for his wife Stacy and their children, and I just want to express the condolences of the Huntington Woods City Commission to the Wittenberg family. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, it might be worth at a future meeting considering planting a tree or a bench in perhaps Judge Wittenberg's honor. Consider that at some future time, I think would be appropriate.
Okay, thank you. With that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Thanks, everyone, for attending.
Happy holidays,
Happy
everyone.
holidays.
Warren,
8:47.
47.
Chris Herschel walk.